Hey, what's up? It's Renee Misha. In this video, I'm going to show you a few different ways to connect your analog equipment with your mixing board. I'm also going to show you how to connect, let's say, a compressor or an equalizer, as well as how to connect the sends and the returns so you can use effects. This is really important when you start working with a mixing board and you get a few pieces of analog hardware and you're not sure what to do. It's actually really straightforward and simple, but it can seem a little bit complex at first. Alright, so we're going to start off with a basic mixer. This is a pretty standard mixer. I'm going to use in this example a compressor. This is the RNC1773 compressor. And here are the ins and the outs. Super simple to set up. So there's a few ways to do this. This is the left channel. This is the right channel. So this is one single channel by itself, and this is another single channel by itself. What you can use in this case is a few different ways to connect it. The first way, which is pretty standard, is by using a TRS cable. So we are going to need two. This is how we would connect it as an insert. Very standard setup for a mixer. So you have your lines, you have your inserts, your auxiliary sends and returns, inputs, outputs. So we have a lot to cover. So really simple. Simply put, with a TRS, I always do red out, black in, or red right, black left. That's just my preference. Okay. And so now that we have that set up, if you look at line 7 right here, let's say I want to make that the right channel. And line 8, let's say I want to make that the left channel. As simple as that. So now anything that I do on this compressor will be acting as an insert and affecting whatever the track is. So for example, if I was connecting to my DAW and I was doing left and right on the DAW, anything I do is going to be affected by this compressor using these tracks. So that is one way. This is the same technique to connect any effects. Now if I want to do it on my master track, I would simply identify where the connection is for that, which is right here, and I would do the same process and plug the cables in right here. This would add compression to the overall track if I added it here. And now there would be compression on the entire track. Now let's say I wanted to go for my DAW, I wanted to do a bass or something like that, and I wanted to send it out to the mixing board, but I wanted to run it through the compressor first. How would I do that? Super simple. So if it's a mono channel, I would just go to the mono left here. Usually on most devices it is a left channel. And I would just go in, attach this part that's going in to the output of my DAW, and then go out of that same channel and connect it into the line of whichever track I want to record through. Literally that simple. And that way I could adjust my bass if I was doing bass on here first, and it will go here before it hits the mixing board. So that's really straightforward and super simple. If I wanted to go in directly through my DAW, I would connect this to the output of my DAW, send the audio to there, and then go in to the line on the mixing board. So let's go over a few more features. All right, now let's look at how the mixing board works. This is just going to be a quick overview. It's actually really straightforward. If you have used a DAW for recording, it's the same thing, just an external physical version of it. So for starters, let's say we're using track number 10. Okay, so let's just assume we're using this track right here. For track 10, this is the fader right here. I usually leave the fader at 0 to start. Make sure that you have your fader set up. Make sure that you have your main mix turned up as well to about 0. Make sure that you watch the meters. It's going to tell you how much signal you're getting. And let's assume that you have already connected your equipment what you're going to do to get started, I always start with the track turned all the way down. So you're going to want to start with the track turned all the way down. And then I check through here first and make sure that everything is set to unity. So I'm not adding any color or any signal before I start, such as EQ. And then what you want to do next is simply adjust right here on your gain until you get it to the level that you want. Make sure that you go nice and slow. And the last step to make sure you're getting sound is these are your sends right here. So you have tracks 1 and 2 for the bus, 3 and 4 for the bus, and left and right. So you want to make sure that you hit this button and make sure that it's in. This is going to send the music to the main mix stereo port. If you want it to go out of the bus tracks, then you would press that in as well. But you have to also make sure that if you do it that way, that you're also clicking these in to assign it to the main mix. Pretty much standard on any mixing board. Depending on what you're doing, you may need buses, you may not need buses. And also, let's just look at this part here very quickly. Here we have the EQ section, as you can see, pretty standard on most mixing boards. We also have a low cut right here. And also make sure that you set the pan to center if it is a mono track. And if you're doing a left and right, let's say this is left and this is right, you want to make sure that those are panned as well, so you don't run into any issues. So we talked about this. This is the gain. This controls the mic preamp. These are the auxiliary tracks, which I typically use my auxiliary tracks as effects tracks, but you can also use them for other things such as external monitoring, etc. So this one has 4 auxiliary tracks. Then we have the EQ section, and that's it. Simple as that. And then of course there is the button to solo or not solo. So it's pretty straightforward. If you're not used to seeing it, this looks very complex. But what you're basically seeing is this is track 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 16. This is a 16 track mixer, and the features are the same across every single channel. So that's it. So there are a total of 16 inputs, 16 outputs on this particular mixer, but you have additional controls such as if you want to use the tape output. This was more popular back in the day. Subs, monitors, different things like that, to where you could use this in a live setting, a public setting for DJing. Also, if you want to use external monitoring ports, if you want to add an auxiliary send across the entire track, things like that. But a lot of these features you probably won't need for recording when the time comes. Now the tape input and output, these are super handy for if you're actually working with the tape machine. And of course you also have mic inputs. This one does have phantom power built into each channel, but that is pretty much the gist of that. This one has a phantom switch on and off, but I know my other mixer has it individual on each track. And with this particular mixer, if you wanted to go back out of the mixer and into the DAW to record, you would use your direct outputs here and connect those outputs to the inputs on your device. However, again, each mixer is going to be a little bit slightly different. And yes, you also can use these send and returns as additional ports, outputs. Now, how to set up sends and returns. This is actually really simple. So we have the effects tracks here, and then we have the auxiliary tracks down here. So if we want to use the effects tracks, what we're going to do, let's say that I want to use these two, right? I would simply just turn up the amount that I want to use. So this is effects 1, right? These are effects track 2s. It's the same across the board for every single channel. So let's say I want to use a little bit and it's connected to effects 2. I'm going to adjust that. And then same thing with the auxiliaries, which can be used for a lot of different things. Every mixer is going to be a little bit different, but you will have to make sure that it is properly connected. So on this mixer, here's effects 1, here's effects 2, and you would turn it up on here as well and set it to master, and you'll be able to hear it. So this is going to be what you hear, and for the auxiliaries, the same exact thing, but you know, there's pre and post, before or after modifications made to the track. This part doesn't matter so much because this is going to depend on what type of mixer that you have, mute, etc. But let's show you how to connect it. So for example, this is the send for effects 1, and what you're going to do is the send goes into whatever your effects unit is. I'll show you in just a moment. And for the return, this is going to be the output on whatever your effects unit is. So I'll say it one more time. This, for example, is effects 1, and this is the send. So this is going to be the signal that you are sending into whatever effects unit that you have. And for the output right here is the return. So you're going to connect the output on your effects unit and bring it into here. Simple as that. So I'll show you. All right. So for example, this is my effects unit right here. And what I'm going to do is bring the send into the input on the effects unit. Here's that red cable again. For the return, I'm going to use the output right here. So it's going out. This particular effects unit has mono and stereo, like a lot of them. If you're using a mixing board, depending on what type of effects you're using, you may want to switch it into mono, or you may want to keep it in stereo. Now, if you want to use both outputs and both inputs, this is going to depend on the setting of your mixer. But typically when you're using effects such as a reverb or a delay, mono is fine, but you do want to use both of the outputs for a left and right if you can, going back into the mixer. What does it sound like if you just use mono only? It's not going to be quite as full if you don't use the left and the right, but it's still going to sound great for your effects. I hope this helps. If you like this video, please hit the like button and make sure to subscribe. And until next time, have an awesome, amazing, fun, cool rest of the day.